The New Orleans Saints are ascending towards the NFL's elite, and they absolutely deserve the hype. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net and Saints analyst with WWL TV. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, the New Orleans Saints are favored now up against the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. I'll tell you why I kind of hate it. We're also going to dive into the signs of a perfect offensive system that the New Orleans Saints have shown that I think is really, really important. It is a big part of their success. We're going to kick everything off here with a look at the New Orleans Saints, who deserve the hype because not only are they winning, but they're winning with variety. We got all that coming up for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day, and for being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers will bet $5 will get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the New Orleans Saints are getting a lot of attention. They're getting a lot of hype. And if you ask me, they absolutely deserve it. And one of the big reasons why is because while everybody's talking about the New Orleans Saints offense, Klint Kubiak, Derek Carr, all of these things, which they absolutely deserve all of the praise. Don't get me wrong. The Saints behind the scenes are winning in a variety of different ways. Let's not forget that the Saints defense still hasn't given up more than 19 points in their first two opening games, an average of 14.5 points. And they're also allowing one of the NFL's lowest rushing yard per carry averages across the league as well. Let's not forget that the Saints are one of the teams that are forcing one of the lowest passer ratings in the NFL when thrown against so far this offseason, or so far this regular season as well. The defense is getting it done. Then we go back over to the offense, right? The offense, the passing game, getting it done. The speed of Rashid Shaheed, the speed of Chris Olave, very hard to contest that, to stop that. And Klint Kubiak, New Orleans Saints' new offensive coordinator, knows it, and he's utilizing those guys as those deep downfield threats, putting them in those situations and saying, go out there because they can't stop you. And I absolutely love that from Klint Kubiak and the New Orleans Saints. They're also doing it with the physicality of their tight ends and their run game up the middle, in the middle of the defense, in the middle of the field as well. The New Orleans Saints, again, very active over the middle of the field in this past game, with a lot of their contributions coming in the middle of the field between the numbers, or in the intermediate area between 10 to 19 yards from the line of scrimmage. The Saints, again, attacking those areas quite a bit. Okay, if that's not working, what do? Well, they're one of the league's best run offenses right now, 370 total yards, the third most in NFL history when it comes to, or the third most in franchise history, when it comes to the first two games to open a New Orleans Saints season. 180 team rushing yards last week, 190 this past week against the Dallas Cowboys. Alvin Kamara's on a tear. 112 of his 115 rushing yards going to the outside of the tackle area, according to Next Gen Stats. The Saints are winning in a variety of different ways, and they're doing it from a variety of different looks and formations as well. We're watching the New Orleans Saints not really vary very much. And remember, this is what we told you to expect from the very beginning. This is what you and I talked about a lot, is that the Saints, when they're out in 11 personnel, the majority of the time, their 11 personnel grouping is going to be their 11 personnel grouping. You're going to see Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Cedric Wilson Jr. at wide receiver. You're going to see Foster Moreau at tight end, and you're going to see Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Then when they switch it up and they go to 12 personnel, you're seeing a lot of Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed at wide receiver, Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill at tight end, and then Alvin Kamara at running back. And then similarly, when they switch to 12 personnel, you're watching either Taysom Hill move to the backfield, or you're watching him swap out with Adam Prentice. Now, there are occasions where it's not Alvin Kamara and it's Jamal Williams. Yes, there are. But for the most part, that's the players checking themselves out and saying, I need a breath. I need a breather, right? It's not just aimlessly changing around these personnel groupings and shuffling their personnel matches. for reasons. It's not that. It's very pointed in terms of who is on the field for the Saints. They're keeping their playmakers on the field. And who would have thought that if you keep your playmakers on the field, you keep your best players on the field, you get some of the best production from those best players? Who would have thunk, right? So we're seeing the New Orleans Saints do that as well. And so even though we're seeing the same kind of collection of players, the formations, the personnel groupings, because they're running 11, they're running 12, they're running 21, they're running 22, like they're doing all these different things. And remember, when we say those numbers, first number is the number of running backs, second number is the number of tight ends. So 22 would be 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, 12, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 21, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. You get it. All of those things that they're running, they have been one of the more kind of unpredictable offenses because of that. And we saw last week up against the Dallas Cowboys where the Saints will come out in a 2 tight end set, a 12 personnel, but then the defense across from them is in nickel because they don't know how to treat Taysom Hill when he's in the huddle. Is he going to line up in line? Is he going to be a passing threat? Are they going to utilize him as a blocker? Is he going to be lined up in the slot? Is he going to start out wide then motion somewhere? Is he going to be in the backfield, or is he going to be they don't know. They don't know what to do when Taysom Hill is in that huddle. And so this is one of the reasons why, again, variety, it's a spice of life after all. It's a spice of the New Orleans Saints life as well, because they're winning in all of those areas over on the offensive side. And in the hop back over the defensive side for just a moment, the Saints not only doing well when it comes to what they're doing pass protection, pass defense wise, but you see what they've been doing in the run game. And Carl Granderson right now is one of the top 15 players in the NFL, according to ESPN, in pass rush win rate. So he's getting into the backfield despite the fact that he's one of the most double teamed defensive ends on that list at 25%, a quarter of his snaps. He's being doubled. And so that's opening up opportunities for guys like Chase Young and I guess Alontae Taylor in week 1, right? And these other players to be able to get back there and get into the backfield. So Carl Granderson, again, being the team's top pass rusher to an extent, right? Depending upon what metrics you're looking at and all those things. So they're winning with getting pressure on the quarterback, though I do think they could stand to get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. They're winning with their back end coverage. The tandem of Tyrann Mathieu and Will Harris Jr. has been outstanding through the first 2 games. I mentioned that Willie Gay Jr. would probably be the guy by the end of the season that we're looking at and that the rest of the NFL is looking at and going, wow, that was such an underrated pickup for the New Orleans Saints. Well, it actually looks like the 2 guys that are in that conversation through the first 2 games are Will Harris Jr. and then starting left guard Lucas Patrick, who's one of the highest graded offensive linemen by Pro Football Focus in week 2 of the 2024 season. So the Saints are winning on their defensive line and their offensive line. They're winning in the second level of their defense. They're winning at quarterback on offense and in the run game. They're winning with pass coverage on defense. They're winning with their ability to attack with the passing game in an efficient and not overbearing, risky way on offense. The New Orleans Saints are winning in a variety of different ways. And oh, by the way, Blake Grupe's perfect as a field goal kicker, with the exception of a blocked extra point. But in terms of kicking field goals, he's perfect on the season, including a workload his first week. And Matthew Hayball, he'll develop further and further and further as a punter in the NFL. But the guy has punted like 4 times so far, and they've all been in the fourth quarter when the team is well ahead. The Saints are winning in every facet of the game so far. And to me, when you talk about sustainability, that's one of the things that makes you most sustainable. If you're going to prove that you are sustainable, is the ability to win in multiple ways. Because at some point, one of the things that we've highlighted today is not going to work in a game. And so can one of those other things come up and kind of close the gap? And when you're winning at every level, like the New Orleans Saints are right now against a Carolina Panthers team that a lot of people doubted and a Dallas Cowboys team that people are just now, for whatever reason, starting to doubt, I think that tells you exactly where the New Orleans Saints are. They're a threat. Coming up next, we're going to be taking a look at how the New Orleans Saints offensive system bears the perfect, or the sign, the most important sign of a perfect offensive scheme. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by friends over at LinkedIn Jobs, the perfect place to head if you're a small business looking to continue to build out your team. Remember, your business is only as successful as the team that you build to help run it. And that's why we love LinkedIn Jobs, because they're not just another job board. LinkedIn Jobs helps you hire professionals like a professional, the kind that you can't find anywhere else. And even those that aren't actively searching for a job, but might be looking for the perfect role, which could be exactly what you have to offer. In fact, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other job sites. If you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn Jobs for their hiring, and yours should be in that number. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedon NFL. That's linkedin.com/lockedon NFL, LOCKEDON NFL, linkedin.com/lockedon NFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode brought to you by friends over at Game Time, the best place to go and purchase your tickets, whether you're planning months in advance or if you're like me and you plan moments in advance. I absolutely love Game Time. Let me tell you about a couple of features that I love when it comes to picking up tickets to your favorite sporting events, your favorite concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is that you're looking for over at Game Time. All in pricing, my favorite. You toggle it on so that it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees. When you get to checkout, you can see your views from your seats before you buy the tickets on the app. That way you know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the arena, the stadium, whatever venue. And one of my favorite things right now is Game Time Picks. It's a curation that makes it so much easier for you to be able to save more on your tickets, showing you the best deals so you don't have to sort through thousands and thousands of the fantastic offers that Game Time has to offer. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets by getting Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, family. The New Orleans Saints offense has the sign. They've got it. The thing you want to see from any offense that shows you that is the perfect system, that it is an elite system. And when I say perfect system, I mean a perfect fit for their personnel. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here. Don't forget, All We Talk Saints right here every Monday through Friday. No fluff, nothing else. 30 minutes every day, even though it was a little late today. 30 minutes all day here over at Locked On Saints. If you want to hear about your New Orleans Saints, especially right now, while everything is so exciting, Locked On Saints is the place to be. Take a moment to check us out. All right, so, or thank you for taking a moment to check us out. The thing that I think that every elite offensive system has is a duality. And that duality or dichotomy is that on one side of the football, the offense for the Saints, for the team, everything's simple. Everything is simple. It makes sense. It fits. The triangle fits in the triangle hole. The square fits in the square hole. All those things. It all makes perfect sense. But then over for the defense that's defending them, they're dramatically confused by what it is that the offensive system is doing. This is what we've seen from Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers, what we've seen with Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams. Bobby Slowick with the Houston Texans has been doing this very well as well, going over actually the same position that Klint Kubiak held in 2023 is what Bobby Slowick held in 2022. And look what adding Bobby Slowick to the Houston Texans, along with DeMeco Ryans, and of course, a franchise quarterback, CJ Stroud, certainly helped too. But how quickly that all came about and what that offensive system looks like, I mean. And you're seeing the same thing here in New Orleans. The Saints are doing things on offense that are so simple for them, but that are perplexing the team on the opposite side. We're watching defenses run around, scramble, who's got whom, what's going on, all this other stuff. Micah Parsons is talking about how he's being defended or was defended in a way that he had never been defended before because of what the New Orleans Saints did to him on Sunday. I mean, look, the Saints, they gave some help over every now and then, but honestly, Trevor Penning just won on a couple of occasions, like multiple occasions. A screen pass to Alvin Kamara, the 70-yard pass from Saints quarterback Derek Carr over to Rashid Shaheed, the speedy deep threat. Trevor Penning just simply kind of won those matchups and those battles. But nonetheless, it's a perfect example of what it is that you want to see from New Orleans, is that they have the sort of ingredient, the most important ingredient. The roux is the most important part of a gumbo. Well, the roux of this New Orleans Saints offensive gumbo is the fact that they share that same quality with the San Francisco 49ers, with the Los Angeles Rams, with the Houston Texans, and other elite offenses in the NFL, Miami for the most part. They share that one key roux, that one key ingredient. That's a dichotomy. I took a pause there because I want to make sure that I say, because I don't want to lose my Cajun card here. I don't want to lose my heritage card here. But I know that roux is not one ingredient. I just want to say that. I just want to say it because I know you said it. I know you said it when I said that. I know it's not just one ingredient. I'm simplifying for the benefit of our conversation today. But you understand what I'm saying, right? Like that's the foundation for everything. And the Saints have that foundation of the dichotomy, the dilemma that they present to the opposing defense by doing what is simply what looks like second nature to them. You know what I mean? And so let me give you a little bit of an example of that, actually. The Saints opening up that, or really uncorking rather, that one play touchdown drive, right? The 70-yard deep pass from Derek Carr to Rashid Shaheed. We're starting to dive into our film stuff here now. But I did the film study for the Locked On Saints Insider program that includes like film and stuff like, since I can't use film. First of all, film doesn't do you any good if you're listening to the show, so that's just unfair to you. And then also, I can't post film on YouTube. Anyway, I'll get in trouble. So Insider program is where you can get that. You can learn more in the description if you're interested. But like the thing that I want you to take away from this is that like what the Saints did in that play, there's a lot that you can look at and go, wow, that's just football players being really good at football, which is not at all untrue by any stretch of the imagination. Rashid Shaheed is faster than everyone. Derek Carr's arm is stronger than anybody thought that it was. I don't know if that's actually true, but I think that he gets underrated in terms of arm strength quite a bit. And he's a better pre-snap adjuster than I think he's given credit for. And you see all three levels of that in that 70-yard touchdown pass. But you know what else you see? Motion. You see pre-snap adjustment. You see a wide receiver understanding how to utilize leverage in his game plan. Let me break down a couple of things. So Derek Carr takes the snap, and as he's dropping back for the play action, then you end up seeing the motion before the snap was Adam Prentice going from the right side of the formation to the left side of the formation. Then you see right after the snap, Foster Moreau doing the same thing. He goes from the right side of the formation over to the left side of the formation. Why? The reason why they do this is because they wanted to get two players over to the backside of that play so that they could sell the run, right? They wanted to be able to sell the run. So you have all of that pulling that's happening that tells you that that's where you should believe that the play is going, when actually it turns out to be the backside of the play. So DeMarcus Lawrence, the Dallas Cowboys defensive end, ends up in a one-on-one situation with Adam Prentice, tries to cut to the inside, but Foster Moreau was pulled over on a delay, ends up being in the path, recoursing DeMarcus Lawrence, who has no chance at that point then to get to Derek Carr. Trevor Penning over on the right side simply wins his battle, buying Derek Carr a little bit more than 4 seconds on the play, which gives you the opportunity for what is effectively a two-man route to develop. This is key. This is key because you need those routes to develop when you're running a two-man route like that, or at least what turns into a four-man route. But Adam Prentice is going out very late. Jamal Williams is going out very late, both of them helping in pass protection first before leaking out into the flats. So this is what you're looking for. Then, after Trevor Penning holds up for all that time, Derek Carr is actually looking at Chris Olave on the over route, right? Because you have the skinny post that he eventually hits that he eventually hits Rashid Shaheed on, but then you have the over route that's coming from the opposite side of the field with Chris Olave. And at first, it looks like the Chris Olave route is going to be open. Why? Well, this is because over on this right side of the field where Rashid Shaheed starts, he gets press coverage from the Dallas corner, but he takes an inside cut on his leverage, an inside release off of the line of scrimmage, which lessens the impact, allowing him to stay on time. That's key because, again, it's a two-man route and you need those routes to develop. So if you can get a clean release off the line of scrimmage, your opportunity to develop that route and fully get open before somebody gets to your quarterback is vastly higher than if you get jammed at the line of scrimmage. So he understands his leverage. He wins with the inside leverage off the release, pushes upfield, teases to the outside, getting the outside safety to fully flip his hips to the sideline. Rashid Shaheed does this so well. He constantly forces leverage on these defenders that get up over the top of him, pushes inside, forces the safety to commit to the inside leverage, and then he cuts back inside of him, goes on the skinny post, runs to the middle of the field, and then boom, it's a perfect throw from Derek Carr, who hits him, who, by the way, had to move off of Chris Olave because remember that safety or that corner I was talking about that tried to jam Rashid Shaheed at the line of scrimmage? Well, when he didn't get the jam, he backs out. He's playing underneath in a cloud, and there's no underneath route for him to guard. So he starts to drop back. He starts to bail out. And so because he starts to bail out, he ends up undercutting, kind of unintentionally, Chris Olave's over route. So then the skinny post becomes the only option for Derek Carr. And somehow Rashid Shaheed, just on individual effort, outruns two safeties that are set over the top of him. That play looks like if you freeze it at a certain point, it should go nowhere. He ends up winning. It's the perfect system. The Saints did enough to confuse Dallas and keep Dallas at bay so that they could play to their identity. And that play, that one right there, was a very good understanding of what the New Orleans Saints identity is. Run, 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 play action, attack over the top, and win. And that's exactly what the New Orleans Saints did. They have right now what feels like the perfect system for their players, and they're running it so very well because of the conflict that they create as a team that looks so comfortable doing what it's doing because it all comes easy to them, but is incredibly challenging for the defense that's across them. And now they get an opportunity to do it again against a very good defense in Philadelphia this weekend. And I cannot wait. Coming up next in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles, the New Orleans Saints are now favored. I'm going to tell you why I kind of hate it, because I think the New Orleans Saints might like being underdogs. We got that coming for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, who, I got news for you, they're liking the gumbo. The tides are turning. They're biting the beignet. They're enjoying the jambalaya. New Orleans Saints now favored 2.5 points over the Philadelphia Eagles, who come to town on Sunday. Remember, the New Orleans Saints were 6.5-point underdogs going on the road up against the Dallas Cowboys. And before the Philadelphia Eagles dropped last night's game to the Atlanta Falcons, the Saints were actually underdogs at home. So now the Saints getting a little bit of faith from their friends over in Vegas. And you can get in on that action. And right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market NFL game. And all you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. So just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook and get in on the action. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints are now favored up against the Philadelphia Eagles. I kind of hate it. I'm going to tell you why. I don't hate that they're favored. I'll explain here in a sec. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here and making us your first listen of the day every day here on the Locked On Saints podcast. I want to give a quick shout out to my good friend Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans, as well as Matt Moscona over at Locked On LSU. Make sure you're checking them out as well. They see all of the great things going on all around Locked On Louisiana. So, the New Orleans Saints now favored in their game against the Philadelphia Eagles, 2.5-point favorites, despite being 6.5-point underdogs on the road against the Dallas Cowboys last week. And I kind of don't like it. I kind of hate it. I think the Saints would very much rather continue to be the underdogs, but you know what? It's just like I opened the show saying, the Saints deserve the hype. Everyone's talking about them. The greats like Mina Kimes, the former players like Chase Daniel, who made sure to say that this New Orleans Saints win against the Dallas Cowboys is not about the Dallas Cowboys being bad. It is all about the New Orleans Saints being the real deal. Shout out to Chase Daniel for understanding the assignment. I mean, I get it. The New Orleans Saints are exciting. They're passionate. They're experienced, which I think has a lot to do with why the system is working so quickly and everything. You just gotta imagine the New Orleans Saints really liked being the underdogs for a little while. So now they kind of go from a little bit of a prove them wrong mentality to maybe a little bit of a prove them right mentality. Or maybe if you're the New Orleans Saints, you kind of go, you know what? Don't care. And I think this is what you're going to hear from every player, every coach, is that they don't care. They don't care that they're favored. But I hope that they remember what everyone, and I mean everyone, said about them over the course of the offseason. Some idiots said that they wouldn't even win 7 games. Foolery. Of course, I'm taking a shot at myself there. But, look, I think that this is something that comes with the territory of being what is one of the NFL's best stories right now. The New Orleans Saints offense is the quintessential NFL hype situation. It is one of the favorite stories around the NFL. The lowly underdog gets a new offensive system because the NFL loves its offense. They love offensive coordinators. They love offensive coordinators that become head coaches, which could be in Klint Kubiak's future. But for right now, he's the New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator, and that's all that matters. And the Saints are that team that had this sort of, down couple of years, a fall from grace, if you will. And then now all of a sudden there's signs of life. We can't say that they're climbing all the way back or anything like that. Like, it's a 17-game season. I understand that. And I'm always very cognizant of that. However, like, they're showing the signs of life very early that they are a team to be reckoned with. Bucky Brooks put them as the number 2 team in his top 10 NFL team. We did our power rankings this past week. I think I put the Saints at 8 because I think they're a top 10 team. I could have put them higher. Honestly, I probably should have put them higher. Maybe 5th or something like that. But, I'm just kind of waiting. You just want to see like more continued success and all these other things. And so they're one of the top teams in the NFC. They're one of the top teams in the NFL right now. They are a top team in the NFL when it comes to statistics, major statistics and all these other things. They're absolutely outstanding. And this is one of the reasons why the Saints are going to get a lot of love in terms of what it is that they've been doing. And keep in mind too that they're getting love not just because of their offense. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about their offense, but just check this out. Their offense right now, number 1 scoring passing offense. They're the number 1 scoring team in the NFL when it comes to points scored. They're also the number 3 total yardage team in the NFL. They're 3rd in the NFL right now when it comes to rushing yards, and they're number 1 in both passing and rushing touchdowns. That's on the offensive side. On the defensive side, number 4 scoring defense, number 7 total yards defense. They're the number 2 scoring defense against the pass. They're the number 3 rushing defense, whether you're looking at scoring or yardage. It's not just their offense. And this is sort of the making of, the best of the best teams is when you can be elite on both sides. And make no mistake about it, through the first 2 weeks, the New Orleans Saints have been elite. And that's why they're now favored going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, who showed real sort of weakness up against the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. Took them forever took both teams forever to get into the end zone while the defenses on either side weren't playing particularly well. CJ Gardner-Johnson says the New Orleans Saints can't score 40 points apparently, or something like that. I don't know. I thought I saw that somewhere. But in any case, like, this just shows you exactly why the Saints are getting the love that they're getting. It's not just because of what's happening on the offense, although what's happening on the offense is always going to get them more talk than what's happening on the defense, because the highlights look prettier and the NFL loves offense and the NFL loves quarterbacks and all these other things. And again, Rashid Shaheed is like the perfect player. Chris Olave, the perfect player. Both those guys for being those elite wide receivers. They've got the right attitudes. They work incredibly hard. They have great speed. They get highlight moments. Chris Olave still makes some of the most difficult catches across the league at the position. It all makes sense in terms of why they're going to get more and more and more and more attention. And just keep this in mind too. The Saints will play the Philadelphia Eagles. Then they have a high-profile division game, one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL, against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta next weekend. Then they play the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs right after that. And then 2 weeks after that, don't forget, the New Orleans Saints on Thursday Night Football national television will welcome for the first time former head coach Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos to the Superdome. The Saints are just going to keep being in the eyes of the NFL more and more and more and more. And as long as they continue to do the things that have made them dominant, no mistake about it, dominant. There is no other word for it. Well, there are other words for it, but you can't take the word dominant out of the grouping of words that there are before it. Uh, the Saints showing that they are a dominant force in the NFL to open up the season, that's going to bring them the eyes. And then they have these high profile matchups where if they keep showing up the way that they've showed up through these first two games, the love is only going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And make no mistake about it, the Super Bowl being in New Orleans is only going to push the narratives further and further and further and quicker and quicker and quicker. Like, people are only going to be willing to accelerate the excitement faster because of that very thing. What do the New Orleans Saints need to do? Well, they need to remain effective. They need to be ready to pivot, right? Kubiak has so much still left in his, so many rabbits in his hat, if you will. And they have to stay healthy. And by the way, positive news around Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill was brought to the hospital after the Dallas Cowboys game, was checked out for a chest injury. They wanted to get imaging done to make sure that it wasn't too serious. Turns out it was not as serious. They feel that they have dodged something big time there. He traveled back home with the team on time after being released from the hospital. And Dennis Allen saying that, they feel that he avoided anything major, which is great news. Great news for the New Orleans Saints and for Taysom Hill. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not available to go against Philly next week, which is a little bit disappointing because he typically has nice moments against Philadelphia, but definitely something to be ready for because he's got great moments against the Atlanta Falcons. So if he's ready for the Atlanta Falcons game, that would be ideal. But the Saints not missing out on, at least for an extended period of time, maybe a couple of games, maybe something like that. We'll see what that ends up being, but not missing out on an extended amount of time. Their time with Taysom Hill, huge. So a step forward in terms of health. All right, y'all. We'll be back with you with a fresh episode tomorrow morning as we dive deeper into the film. We're going to go into Trevor Penning's day. We're going to dig into Lucas Patrick and the impact that he has had. And we're going to focus on the defensive line a little bit too with some of the interesting things that they have done as well. We appreciate you very much as always, making us your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, go and check out the Madman Tyler Rowland and The Barbershop with Tony Wiggins, a double dose of daily espresso and daily NFL news. Make sure you go and check them out today over in the Locked On NFL podcast. We appreciate you very much as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.